Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Falcons Trench Talk here on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, joined by my co-host. He is Jordan Watkins at Big 75. Fella, Jordan, it was difficult Sunday. We had a lot of feelings to get out on the post-game show. I know we have a lot of feelings now, particularly with the rest of the news that's come out. We're recording this on Monday afternoon about Grady Jarrett's injury, and now we have a full-blown quarterback controversy on our hands. So interesting show in store for you guys today before we do that. But how you doing, Jordan? How you handling it?
It's tough. I woke up this morning, and again, when you're on the East Coast, you get the news a little bit sooner than we do on the West Coast. So I got that news about Grady Jarrett, and I think it was about 7:30-ish in the morning, and it sucked. It sucked for a few reasons. Obviously, first and foremost, as a Falcons fan, we know how good Grady's been. We know how much we've been asking to have a good D-line around Grady for almost a decade now. Maybe it is a decade. And no, it's almost a decade. Yeah. And so that it's like finally you have a defense around him. You have this great unit around him, and that's when he tears his ACL. Really, like that hurt. But also, even on a personal level, I've known Grady since we were in high school. He might not remember me, and that if not, that's fine. But we were in certain recruiting camps together. I remember meeting him. We were at a camp at Georgia Tech, and again, even then, a lot of the coaches that were there were raving and ranting about his work ethic and just how he went about things. Like, shocker, we talk about the same things now with him and the Falcons, right? But no, they talked about it then. So that's why I've always been a big fan of his, no matter where he went. I want him to do well when he was at Clemson. Obviously, I want him to do well with the Falcons. It's his hometown team. It's my hometown team. So now seeing that news today about the torn ACL, it was really hard for me. I'm not gonna lie about it. It was really hard, and I just want to give the connections at least as to why it was so hard.
Yeah.
For me to see that.
No, I mean there's so many layers to why it just absolutely sucks. I think Grady Jarrett's been kind of just the badass on the defensive line for so long. Like, I think fans take it, and it's not necessarily through their own fault, but it's sort of like you take it for granted that he's going to be here and be the one guy, essentially, the one that's always going to get it done, the one that's going to carry the load and be a leader. And the way that he leads, he's like a quiet leader, and I really respect that. Like, he's not rah, I'm going to get in your face, I'm going to pump everyone up, but he sort of leads by example. Just the respect he commands in the locker room when he comes to the podium, you can feel it. It's like, oh yeah, you can tell, even if you knew nothing about it, even if you knew nothing about Grady, when he comes up to the podium, this is a leader of the team. Like, you can just tell. And it sucks on so many levels to lose a guy like that. He's one of the nicest interviews I've had. Certainly, nice guy.
I believe it.
Just such a fun player to watch. You can feel his energy when he's on the field. So it just sucks so bad to lose him in that manner, like on the first play of the game, essentially. And
again, the thing for me is to equivalent it back to the whole trench topic of what we're doing. Is it his best stat year? No. But again, the fact that it's not is actually telling you about how good he is. All those double teams that free, or let Nate Landman play free, or let Caden Ellis play free. Grady Jarrett has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
You think about all the double teams, and almost every team now in this year, they play inside zone, outside zone. That's a lot of their staple in the run game. So a lot of what happens when you have a zone-based running scheme, you do double team chip, right? It's double team, boom. This one guy's going to hit you if you're on the D line, trying to chip you over, so we can make sure whoever the player is, like, for example, like Grady, I know he plays the one tech a lot. So it's going to be the guard and the center. The center's job is, I'm going to chip you, to make sure I get you over more so the guard can fully take you over. And then I get to the linebacker. You don't get to do that much with Grady Jarrett lining up at the one tech. And I think people kind of saw that, in this game against Tennessee, where, don't get me wrong, I think for the most part, the D-line still did a solid job. And it wasn't even just Grady being gone. LaKale London got hurt. So that made it, that depleted the numbers a little bit as well. But I'm saying this to say, remember when we got the defensive holding penalty up front? You never saw one of those with Grady.
Yeah.
You never did. And that's the thing for me. It's just, even in a year where he's not having the sack numbers, pressure numbers, you name it, his input and his presence on this defense, oh my gosh, you can't replace it. I don't know if we will be able to replace it. I know we only got a certain amount of time before the trade deadline. I guess I'm more so just saying, again, for Falcons fans, look, again, a lot of y'all underappreciated Matt Ryan. You still do. Don't underappreciate what number 97 does for this team and this defense. Don't do it, please.
Yeah.
When you have a chance to, don't underappreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, I only own one new Falcons jersey of this current generation, and it's Grady Jarrett. Like, that's how highly I view Jarrett. And when I buy a Falcons jersey, that player typically has become like a franchise icon. Like, I have 3 Falcons jerseys that I own. I have Mike Vick, I have Julio Jones, and I have Grady Jarrett. Those were the 3 jerseys I've ever bought. So I have a great track record of jersey buying. And Grady Jarrett definitely contributed to that. But we'll continue to talk about the loss of Jarrett and where the Falcons go from here on the defensive line, the trade deadline, all that stuff, guys. Let me bring you a quick word from our sponsor, betonline.ag. Folks, the last of the major pro sports leagues kicks off this week, and BetOnline is your top spot for all your NBA action this season. With the MLB postseason, NFL and college football and NHL in full swing, BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport, anytime. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action, and don't forget to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Jordan. Well, unfortunately, Grady Jarrett not going to be back in the lineup this year, which is just crushing. But the good news is the Falcons did go out and get that partner in David Onyemata. So they do have somebody in Onyemata, and it looks like they may have found a contributor in LaKale London, who really was taking on Grady's role essentially after he left the game. And LaKale London thankfully did return to the game after his injury later in the game. So it seems like he's okay. And this was not the best game for him, but I still thought he flashed the most of any of the other guys on the defensive line. So this is where we need Taquan Graham to step up. Maybe we see more of Joe Gaziano. We'll see if Albert Huggins comes back out here. Who else can make a difference? But ultimately, I think it's there's probably going to be at least a signing, but it could be a trade deadline move. And my thought, given the presence of Calais Campbell, who we know and have been sort of pushing to play more on the interior, maybe this is a 2 birds, 1 stone move where you do make the trade that we know the Falcons are interested in going for a Montez Sweat. Maybe Danielle Hunter's back on the table with, unfortunately, the Vikings injuries. You get that guy and you move Calais inside, and therefore you're sort of fixing 2 problems at once. Your thoughts?
Kevin, I'm kind of mad at you right now
because
you already stole some of the thunder that I wanted to get on. But no, you're 100% right. And I say that in terms of, look, if you've paid attention to this show the past few weeks, and if you have, again, I appreciate you. I really do. Thank you for tuning in. It truly does mean a lot. And so if you paid attention, you know that we've been talking about Calais Campbell moving inside in weeks prior, and not permanently, just in situational, pass rushes, things like that. So the thing for me is I hate the fact that now we're in a situation where we need Calais to move inside instead of just having the flexibility to move him inside. But no, that's where we are. And like you said, Danielle Hunter, I know we saw the rumors about Montez Sweat before the game. Look, my thing now is if you're Terry Fontenot, I don't care what the result. I don't care what the well, I guess to an extent. I don't care.
I cared a little bit.
Yeah, it's like to an extent.
Yeah.
I don't care what the capital is. You have to make it happen. And the reason why I say that is because you made all these moves in the offseason to make the playoffs this year. That's why you did it. And to stop right now would really be a malpractice of everything you've done as a GM and everything that we've heard from you, Arthur Smith, everybody. Like everything you preached about would be a malpractice if you don't make a move right now. And I think the other part of it too is, I've always been one of those guys, and even to make it a NBA comparison, it's so many times, people are afraid to make this trade, that trade. It's like, oh, well, you're going to give up our first. Well, do you know what that first is going to be? You know what that first is going to evolve in? No, I don't. I know what Montez Sweat is right now. I know what Danielle Hunter is right now. I also know what they potentially, like even more so Montez Sweat than Danielle Hunter, because I know Danielle's a little older, but Montez Sweat, you might have a chance to extend him, and you can solidify at least one side of your edge for a few more years. So, not to quote or, take the Rams fans meme of F them picks, but to an extent, it's like, no, you got to do it right there. Go get them. Go get them. And let's be honest, the Falcons did themselves no favors yesterday. And we're recording on a Monday. So the Falcons didn't do themselves any favors in terms of the capital and what it would take to make that pick happen. Now, thankfully, the Eagles won. So maybe the Commanders are still a little bit more on the side of selling, but we didn't do ourselves any favors of losing that game and how we lost it in terms of pass rush. And I know we're going to get to that of what the Commanders might be looking for in return.
Yeah, and it's sort of one of those things where it's like it doesn't seem like there's been as much interest as I sort of thought there would be in a guy like Montez Sweat. It seeming like it was going to be a third rounder potentially that could escalate to a second rounder. And, you sort of think that's probably the Falcons offer that's been reported because they're the only team that's been officially reported to have interest by multiple sources. So that's probably what the Falcons have offered, which is the third rounder that escalates to a second if the Falcons extend him. And we know this sort of contract language has been involved in a trade that the Falcons have done because they did the same thing in a trade with Calvin Ridley. So again, more sort of breadcrumbs that this is probably the Falcons that they're talking about. I don't know if someone's going to offer more. They could. I would probably also offer the same thing for Danielle Hunter if he's available. But it's tough. But again, it's one of those things where it's like both sides need to make the deal. Like Washington's not going to pay both Sweat and Young. They need to trade one. They're not getting good. They're probably looking for more in terms of the offer for Young, which I find a little bit strange because I think Sweat has been far more consistent and productive, even though his ceiling's not as high. If it takes just a straight up second, then just do it because you're going to extend him. So who cares? So like you're almost certainly going to extend him. So
no, I mean, you're right. And the other part for me too is like the D-line market is being set already. It was set a few weeks ago when the Niners traded for Randy Gregory. That started it. Leonard Williams this morning was what he was traded for from the Giants to the Seahawks, right? I think it was a second next year, and then year after it's a fifth, I believe. Yeah. That's what it is. So, and I get it. He's not a D end. He's not an edge. I understand that. But in terms of a game-changing, I do believe Leonard Williams can be and is a game-changing defensive lineman. You see what the market is. Right? So go get it. Let's go make it happen. Don't make all the moves, the offseason signings that you did to, again, as we all know and believe, especially how the NFC South is this year. Don't make all those moves to win the division. And then when you see it in front of you, stop short. Don't be what, and don't get me wrong. And this is where I'm going to make a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I think and I'm saying this year alone, in terms of this year's Falcons and this year's Braves, don't be Alex Anthopoulos, Terry Fontenot, where you see there is a blatant and obvious hole with the team and you don't address it. I get it. Grady Jarrett's gone. I really wish we could be talking about this situation and this topic in front of the trade deadline with Grady Jarrett there. I really wish I could, but we aren't. We do have a situation where, again, like you said, and I know I've been saying it a lot, we can move Calais Campbell inside.
Yep.
He's
very comfortable doing it. He's done it many times.
And we see it works. It works.
Yeah.
So my thing is, again, don't let this trade deadline go by. And as everyone can see in the football community, the Falcons need an edge. The Falcons need an edge, and you don't get one. Just like the Braves. Braves need a starting pitcher. Oh, no, we're good with what we have. No, you're not. Well, that's the reason why we're sitting home right now. And we watched the Phillies lose to the Diamondbacks, a few days ago. And now the Diamondbacks are in the World Series. Same thing. I love Alex Anthopoulos. He's done amazing things for the Braves. Well, guess what? Terry Fontenot has done amazing things for the Falcons. But here we are where it's time now. It's time to go. And like I said, Anthopoulos didn't make a move. Terry, don't do the same thing.
Yeah. And I do believe they are actively trying. Like I have full faith that they are trying to get a deal done. It does take two to tango. So if it doesn't come to fruition, I don't think it's going to be that the Falcons weren't playing ball. I believe that they're trying. But again, it depends on what they want, because if the price is a first, they can't. They can't.
No, you're right, and that's why I said again, the Falcons did themselves no favors on Sunday, because if you're talking about if it was a second or a third to get someone like Montez Sweat, it's like, okay, you win the game, Commanders lose the game, that looks good. But the fact that you lost and how you lost, remember again, some of the plays we talked about that Will Levis made, because we had no pressure on him. Your price just went up.
Yeah, exactly. So and we can see it. It's if the Falcons have Montez Sweat, they probably beat the Titans, and they probably forced Will Levis into a lot of mistakes, because that's the one thing that was missing from that game. When they lost that dominant interior duo, they limited Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry didn't get shut down, but Derrick Henry didn't beat the Falcons. Derrick Henry got over 100 yards. He averaged over 4.6 yards per carry.
Yeah.
But that was not the problem. He was getting his, but they were limiting him enough that it wasn't an issue. It was obviously the 4 touchdowns allowed through the air, one of which it's an OPI, whatever. I let that go. If you look at AJ Terrell's PFF grade, they clearly didn't ding him for that touchdown because he had a 70-something PFF grade. So clearly PFF agrees that okay, we're not going to blame him for that touchdown. But the other ones, it's just big coverage busts, and Will Levis has all day in the pocket and just is hitting wide open receivers. That one touchdown that Jesse Bates gave up, the play went on so long that the receiver had time to run from one side of the end zone all the way to the other to get open. So we know what the problem with the defense is. It's the pass rush. I think everything else is in place. It would have been much nicer to still have Grady Jarrett and then add on Montez Sweat, and then you're probably talking about this becoming an elite defense. But I think they can still be a top 10 defense if they make the move they need to make here and get either Sweat or Danielle Hunter. I just don't know, if they're going to be able to get it done, because if other people come in and someone's offering a first, the Falcons can't. And the reason why is the quarterback controversy that we're going to get to shortly. But they have to have that first rounder for a quarterback. And whether that's a late, I think in this class they're in a unique situation, because I think there will be late first round quarterbacks that are interesting in this class. So they don't necessarily need the ammunition for a massive trade up because, let's be honest, they're not getting Caleb Williams or Drake May. You can forget that.
I
So
don't want
now you're
them anyway.
looking right. Yeah, don't want them. Yeah, don't care. Yeah. What about? I know Caleb Williams definitely no, but
Told you, you know me. I am a Michael Penix guy. I really am. I really am.
Yeah, I like Penix. So that's what I'm saying. So if they're picking in the late teens, early to mid 20s, there will be some options there that they don't need to trade up for. So they can afford to get rid of a day 2 pick for one of these guys. And the other part of this trade is that this is not a 2023 only trade. Yes, you're acquiring the guy on the last year of his deal, but this is like a trade and sign sort of situation. Like you're getting him so you can have the ability to negotiate and get this guy under contract prior to free agency. Like we just saw with Rashawn Gary, and you mentioned earlier this season as well, there's a bunch of guys listed on over the cap as free agents at edge. There's not going to be any left by the time free agency starts. That's just how this goes. There will be some second tier guys that always sneak through, but Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Rashawn Gary, like all these guys, like they're not going to be available in free agency. So if you want to get a premier edge rusher, you have to trade for them. That's how this goes. And no offense to Terry Fontenot, but I trust trading that second rounder for an established edge guy like a Montez Sweat more than shooting another shot at edge in the second round. I think it's just, and they have the money to do it too. So it's like there's really it just makes way more sense to go this route.
Well, another thing too, and shout out to Scott Kaxmar on X. I got to make sure I say it right. Again, I don't want us.
Gotta be careful out there in Silicon
ban.
Valley.
Yeah. I don't want to get the random ban. But here's the thing. So the lowest passing success rate in a game with 4 touchdown passes since 1994, right? So Kyle Orton, 2014 against the Jets, 33.3%. Justin Fields this year against the Commanders. Remember that DJ Moore went off it was a Thursday night game, 34.4%. Will Levis versus the Falcons, 32.3%, which means, again, defense wasn't bad. Now, they had their moments where they had the lapses and that led to touchdowns. And again, I know we've talked about that before where, you got to stop the coverage bus. That has to stop happening. And also we have to grade and judge this defense based off of what they're trying to cover up, which is a not good enough offense right now. But just think about that. You had a quarterback with a 32, I believe 32.3 is what I said, percent completion success percentage. It could be even less if you had a real dynamic edge rusher.
Yeah. And we talked about it on the post game. The couple times they got pressure, he almost threw picks. Like if that. And
like I said, think about it. And I know again, Grady's hurt. That sucks. I hate it. I really hate it. Not even just for the Falcons fan in me. It's just a Grady Jarrett fan in me. I hate it. I really do. But that being said, if you put Calais on the interior, you still can have a good formidable duo of an inside rush with David Onyemata and Calais Campbell. You know what helps that out? You have someone that's on the edge that really can make things happen. So, like I said, it's time to make it happen. You got to. If you're going to spend all that money again, I'm going to say it again. You're going to spend all that money in the offseason. You're going to make the draft picks that you made. You might as well go in. And not even for someone for this year. That's not even what this is, right? It's not the Dwight Freeney acquisition,
right?
In 2016. And again, we knew we got Dwight Freeney because we're trying to go all in that year.
Yeah,
you're bringing a guy back to Atlanta. He's from the metro area, which has been a trend for Terry Fontenot and this group. That's been a trend. Bring him home. See if you can extend them with this young core that it seems like you're building. So this year it still works, but also in years for the future, it works as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I think it's possible they also add a defensive tackle. Maybe they probably, but this is probably more like what we saw last year, which is like they're going to trade a late round pick for someone that can bolster the depth. You know, I don't expect there'll be like a massive move there because again, I think if you move Calais inside, you've got LaCale London. You're really hoping that Taquan Graham can return to form coming off that injury. Now he did have one of his best games this week, according to PFF. So maybe you can go out and find someone to come in.
And let's see what Albert Huggins has too. Like that was one of your gems and jewels of the preseason. So again, we're not asking him to be a surefire starter. We're just asking them to get some reps and take snaps off of some of the other guys above him. So, you know, let's see what you have there.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you wonder if, maybe you could pry someone away from another team. You know, if they're looking to, if they have someone that's going to be an upcoming free agent or something like that. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But I think they'll be active certainly and looking for some guys and
it better be.
I think they're working the phones. I really do. So we will see if that comes to fruition here. But we got to get, of course, to the offensive side of the ball because we got a full blown quarterback controversy on our hands, Jordan. As the Falcons, as of Monday afternoon, they've basically announced that they will be making a quarterback announcement on Wednesday. They're going to consider it. Arthur Smith keeps vaguely saying stuff about Ridder's health, despite the fact that we know he was cleared from the concussion protocol and looked like he wanted to go back into the game. Now, concussion stuff, you can't, it's not like it's visible on your face. So, like, I don't want to make light of that or anything. But Ridder, to me, looked like a guy that was, like, wanting to go back into the game and he was up, like, you know, doing stuff. So, like, I mean, we don't know for sure the details of that. So we're not going to speculate. But it seems like if he was in the concussion protocol still, they would have just said that. Right. Like he's just saying like, oh, I'm concerned about his health. Like, why wouldn't you say like, oh, well, he's now in the, because that's been something that they've done. Like if players are in the concussion protocol on Monday, they typically say that. They said that about Tay Davis last week. It's not like it's some big secret. You're trying to keep the guys are in the concussion protocol. So it doesn't sound like he's in the concussion protocol. That was what he allegedly was dealing with in the game and then was cleared. And not that you can't have symptoms after being cleared. I mean, that does happen, and you can have symptoms after not even being checked. I mean, it happens, but we also, like, we talked about this a lot on the post game. I of course was very fired up about it. I know you were, I know Alan was, but I feel like that you've opened Pandora's box now, and like Pandora doesn't go back in the box. You know, Pandora's out, it doesn't go back in the box. So Taylor Heinicke, you know, notably finishes the game 37 total snaps, 80 PFF grade, which I believe is higher than any but one of Ridder's games. I think Ridder had a better game in week 5. I think he had like a really high PFF grade that week. But so like Heinicke comes out cold, which is kind of his specialty. He comes out cold, not getting any starting reps, and just lights it up, orchestrates the offense much better, gets the ball out a lot quicker. Even does a little bit of scrambling, you know, and picks up some stuff with his legs, which I think Ridder should have the advantage over him there, given his athleticism. But again, like Heinicke just looks more comfortable. So now we're in this weird scenario now where you've shown people what the offense looks like with Taylor Heinicke, and it looks better. So now what? So now what, Jordan? Now what?
The question is to counter that. And then there are a couple other things that you said I wanna harp on too. But first off, have we really seen what the offense is under Taylor Heinicke? And the reason why I bring that up is, look, everybody loves the backup.
Yeah.
The reason why that's a saying is because when you're going into a game, you prepare for who the starter is. So Tennessee coming to this game, they're preparing for Desmond Ridder. There was never a point this week with Mike Vrabel and that coaching staff of, hey, we got to be ready just in case Taylor Heinicke. No, they don't do that.
Right.
And also, actually, no, let me save that. I want to get into the Arthur Smith part later. There's a lot there. I want to get to it. I need to get to it, but I'm going to wait. But here's the thing for me with Desmond Ridder. Especially at least when it relates to the concussion standpoint. So for those who might not know, maybe you do or you just remember, but still, for those who might not know, I played Again, I played college football. I suffered, I think it was 3 or 4 reported concussions. I say that because, again, I played a position, and we all know the proverbial phrase, oh, you're in the line of scrimmage, you put yourself through a car crash every play, right? We've all heard people say that and talk about it. So who knows how many I actually had? Who knows how many anybody else who's played at the line of scrimmage has had? My point being is because of what the position that I played and because of how many I know I had, I take concussions very seriously. And so my thing is I'm always just under the concept of, look, if somebody had a concussion or you're testing them for a concussion the week before, don't play them the next week. Don't do it. I say that in terms of, again, Desmond Ridder is a young man. I know he's got a wife. I believe he has a kid. Like, don't potentially alter and change his life, especially with the offensive line and how they've been playing. We'll get to that in a second, but don't let that happen. I just wanted to put that in there, and again, like I said, I'm really emphatic about that standpoint of concussions and how those are treated and how those are looked at. I mean, I know a lot of people out here in San Francisco. I told them here too. You know, again, like I said, I'm in the Bay Area. I told people out here, Brock Purdy shouldn't play this week. If you watch the game, you saw late in the game, he had the whiplash where he hit his head hard on the ground. And again, I was like, look, okay, he just had a concussion 6 games ago. Sorry. Take him out. Take him out now. You're down 2 possessions. So 14-point game, like 2 minutes left. Get him out the game. They kept him in. I was really not happy with that. I was really upset. I've been talking about it. I'm still going to talk about it. But again, I guess to get back on track, my apologies for that side rant.
No, it's relevant. I think it's relevant.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just one of those things where, okay, Taylor Heinicke, if he's in, here's the thing for me. Arthur Smith, you have no more scapegoats, right? Like we all understand and know the turnover situation with Desmond Ridder. I can tell you, and I can say, and I still stand on it, certain fumbles weren't his fault. Certain interceptions, I think a lot of those were his fault. But still, that being said, it's the numbers are accumulating for him with the turnovers. And so I know how this offense looked with one guy. I still wish, and again, I've said before, he should have started Desmond sooner last year so you can see what you have in him. You have a feel for what the offense can or can't be with him. You didn't do it. So you let that parlay into this year, which slowed the offense back a bit, in my opinion. So if you do switch to Taylor Heinicke, there are no more scapegoats.
Right.
Like I saw that throw to Scotty Miller on that inside fade wheel going to the corner. I didn't see that throw with Desmond Ridder, which means did you tell us something about what you think about Desmond and what he can or can't throw once you put in Taylor Heinicke? Did you tell us something about your confidence in what Desmond can or can't do with what you'd let happen with Taylor Heinicke? I'm just really interested to see that. Because let's just say again, if Taylor, if he starts this Vikings game coming up and the offense just looks different, that's going to tell a lot about these first 8 weeks of this season, and there are going to be a lot more questions that at least should be asked of what were we doing?
Right. Like, why are we like you can't trust him to make a touch throw in the end zone. So is that why we're seeing Jonnu Smith passes to Michael?
Oh my gosh!
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up that. Triggered. Yeah. Like you trust Jonnu Smith to throw a touch pass.
You get a strong run for 5 yards, and I mean, I guess this is the other part too, and this is another reason why I talk about Arthur Smith as much as I do. Bijan gets in the game. We all know the majority of the plays are going to be inside zone. If we run the ball, it's inside zone. Tennessee, and let's not make any mistake about it. If we're going to talk about matchups, we know Tennessee has a really good front, especially on defense. So you want to keep trying to run plays that extend the time of how long it takes to develop, being outside zone at times, and they don't work. We saw that they weren't going to work early on in the game. You also saw that, hey, we just give it to somebody, let them go downhill and run. It can work. You saw it again, like we're talking about the Jonnu Smith play.
Yeah.
You saw on first down, it was 1st and 10. You got 5 yards. That's a win. It's a win. But later in the game, we're still trying to do this outside zone soft stuff where I'm not going to say that our O-line is bad. They're not as good as they should be, right? Like I'm going to say that. But at the same time, is if they do have something that is working and it looked like some of those downhill runs were working, you got to work with that. You got to call those more often. And that's what's frustrating with me again right now in terms of what the Falcons do offensively.
Yeah.
Just see what works, trust what works, and use what works. You don't have to be it almost feels like play calling offensively is like egotistical to an extent. It's like, no, this is what I want, so this is what's going to have to happen. No, because the same way Tyler runs hard. I love Tyler. Bijan can run hard too. He's 220, 230. Let him run downhill. I just want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, teams are keying on that outside zone stuff, like that they are.
Yes.
Like they're keyed on it. Like you can see it every time Bijan takes a carry outside. People are crashing. They're blitzing linebackers. Like everybody's coming down for that play, and it's like that. They still make it work sometimes because this is a good offensive line that usually can block it up, and they have good blocking receivers and all this stuff. And Bijan's just a great running back. I mean, even it felt like Bijan like had just like a handful of good runs last week, and he still averaged like 6 yards a carry. Like because like the ones that work, they just go. Like he gets 10, 15 yards a pop, but like he should be getting the like 5 to 8 yard gains consistently. But it's not. Instead, it's like 11 for, 50 or 11 for 60, and it's like that's a healthy, efficient day. But like the ones that aren't working are like -2, 0, 0, and then it's like 15, 20, 20. So it's like it's not consistently working, but he's just like winning in spite of that. So you need to mix it up more. Like,
well, what makes it more annoying and frustrating is, again, how many times do we see Bijan make somebody mess in the backfield to make some of those yards happen?
Yeah.
Right. And again, like I said, just understand the flow of the game. You run some of those outside zones earlier. The Titans did a great job of reestablishing early on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
They did a great job of doing that. And part of the reason why they did it is because, at least in the run game, like I don't want to get in the pass game because, oh my gosh, there's a lot there. But in the run game, you did a lot of these longer extending plays. Like I said, the outside zone, it takes time to develop. Wasn't there. So switch it up. Let's go downhill.
We've shown we can do it. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Like,
you've shown you can do it. Even going back to last week against Tampa, one of my biggest concerns was, we got to go against Vita Vea. We know how much he can dominate a run game. You didn't let him do that, but a lot of that wasn't because of what you were doing laterally, and it's a shocker. I hate to say this, and again, I'm not putting this against Bijan. I'm not at all. Remember, Bijan was out for the majority of that game against Tampa. So you had Tyler Algier, exactly, which, again, I hate he had it, the point he had it, but well. But you got Tyler Algier and you got Cordero Patterson. You let those guys get downhill, and that's what happened. But not only did you let the running backs get downhill, you let the O-linemen get downhill, and that's what was working. So all of a sudden, if that works one week, why not even lean on that even more the very next week? You have a game. Yeah. Like that's really frustrating to me.
Yeah. And it's like, I know that the Titans got back their top, one of their top run stuffers in Tyler Tart, who, like, maybe that's why they were like, okay, we should probably avoid the interior. They got Jeffrey Simmons, they got Tyler Tart back, they got Danico Autry in there. Let's try to get it out on the edges. But the Titans were clearly prepared for the outside zone, and it's like, okay, well,
There
let's
you
try
go.
the inside, and the inside's working, so it's like, okay, well, we should just stick with that. Like, and the same thing happened against the Bucks. It's like, oh, they have this good interior, but we're making it work, so let's just stick with it. But I mean, I don't blame them for trying the outside zone initially, because like they probably should try that first, you know, like they probably should try that first because that's their bread and butter. That they usually run it with success. For whatever reason, they're struggling more on it this year, despite better running backs. More comfortable Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, you know, being an upgrade, but like they've had the most success inside zone. And you know, they have occasionally run some power concepts that I think have worked really well. So I don't think they need to box.
Delayed counter that?
Yeah,
I mean, you remember the delayed counter they ran last week too? That worked. So, like, I guess to your point, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay. I'm just saying, to your point, it's you see other things that work.
Yeah,
they've worked a couple of times now. Stick with it. You don't have to be so hard-headed of, oh no, we want to be like this and like that. Well, guess what? The like this and like that ain't working.
Yeah,
you know,
you got to adjust. Yeah.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah.
But it just feels like right now, at least offensively, and like I said, especially in the run game, there's not that adjustment that's going on right now, and that's really frustrating.
Yeah. So it is frustrating for sure to watch, but it's like, and I agree, it's like it felt like they called a different offense for Taylor Heinicke than they did for Desmond Ridder. And we don't have any proof of that, but it certainly looked different. I mean, and it didn't look like fundamentally different, but just sort of the types of routes. But I mean, and maybe it was really just like Heinicke just went downfield more aggressively, which we know is his thing, where he was willing to take those throws that Ridder maybe was hesitating on. So it could be that too, but it's like, you know, we saw that first half game plan where it just kind of reeked of like, we think that they're not going to be able to get pressure, so we're going to dial up this play action deep shot game where the running back's not going to run a hot read, or we're going to have empty backfields for Ridder. And they were getting annihilated. 5 first half sacks for Ridder in that game. And then, you know, we call it out like, oh, it looks like they were not prepared for this Titans pass rush. They look pretty unprepared coming into this game. And then we got team media people calling me a hack for questioning the preparation going into the game, which, you know, incredibly unprofessional. But they looked unprepared, and like it doesn't mean that. And like, yeah, sure, like I'm sure they tried. Like I'm sure they prepared for something, but they weren't prepared for what Tennessee was doing.
I want to address that really quickly. And the reason why I do is obviously, again, Kevin and I talk about it all the time, and I just mentioned it earlier talking about concussions. I play the game at a fairly high level, right? One of the things that I hate to do, and I know sometimes I do it, I need to be better about it, and I hate when I do it. Like I will literally look back at myself later, like, oh my gosh, why did you say that? Or why did you bring it up like this? Is when I bring up, oh, you must be wrong because you didn't play the game or you can't understand it, right? I don't like that, because you look all around, whether it's in the media, some of the coaches. I mean, shoot, one of the best coaches that we say in this era, and maybe of all time, Bill Belichick. Tell me what the highest level that he played football in, right? So again, and I get it, the Titans have a very good front. I don't want to take anything away from that. But if you do see certain things that are working against that front, you should go with it. And you didn't. And even on the defensive side, wouldn't you love to see some more pressure that goes up against a rookie quarterback? And here's the thing. I'm not trying to get down on the defense. I love our defense. I still think we're a phenomenal defense. We're one of the best defenses in the NFL. But again, when I look at the defense, unfortunately, this is what I have to do because of what the offense does. I have to view the defense in terms of, hey, you have to help preserve a 16-point per game offense. I would have loved to see the Falcons win more up front, even without Grady, against an offensive line for Tennessee that is not good. Didn't happen. So yeah, if we want to look at matchups, we can talk about matchups. You don't have to, whether it's a player or be a broadcast, whatever the case may be, you don't have to do that to understand it. We're not here talking about things because we're just being a fan. Like, if we were just being a fan, we could speak in generalities of, oh, so-and-so sucks. He's a bust. That person's a bust. They're not good. No, we're not doing that. The whole point of having the show, Trench Talk, is so we don't do that. And you are a part of this show, and you don't do that. So I'm with you with, again, with that. Like I said, I just wanted to back you up on that point, because I think, again, anybody who watched that game, I don't care what your experience is watching the Falcons, watching NFL football, watching football, period. You could tell things were a little bit off in terms of how it seemed like they were prepared. Like, you don't throw a pass from tight end 2 to tight end 3 and feel like you're prepared. You don't have all these miscues on punt returns and kick returns and feel like a team was prepared. You don't have one of your starting safeties get, just be in no man's land for 2 touchdowns against a rookie quarterback if you're prepared. So I felt like there was a lot of what you said that was fair. And I don't care what your history and background is playing football, watching football. You're right to say that, because I'm saying it too. And if anyone has something to say otherwise about that, like, please feel free to talk to me. I'm all ears. I'm open to listen. But to say you clearly don't know and understand, matchups, that doesn't fully tell the story of the game. But if it does, again, it goes back to coaching, which I've talked a lot about on this show and others. Goes back to coaching. And off that, I know I've been on the soapbox. I want to stop, but I really did want to. I had to say that. I had to.
No. I mean, I appreciate it. And it's like, the like, watch the tape, or the like you didn't play thing. I mean, it's tired. Everyone's been dealing with it, and like there's and some people it really is like, okay, like you clearly don't know what you're talking about, and then so I understand doing it, but to come from like a team media member, like a famous member of the team, former NFL quarterback, not going to say names, but you guys know who I'm talking about.
And I love what he does. Like, don't get me wrong. I want to make that clear.
Yes.
I love what he does. And that's why I'm saying, like, from the standpoint of, okay, if you disagree with certain things, let's talk.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not even saying on here, because I get what some of the media does. Like, and like we've seen it from guys like Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless. It's like, you say something, someone reacts. It's like, oh, all right, well, if you don't like that, come on air. No, I'm not saying that. It's no, if you don't like it, talking, like you said, talking private. Like, what matchups do you think that that you don't understand? And again, this is where I'm just putting my hat on of where, all right, cool, I played the game. What matchups do you think I don't understand as well? But it's also, but like, there's this point here or there where the Falcons didn't take advantage also of certain matchups. Because I think that's on the table too, but we're not going to talk about that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very, it's super duper uncool, obviously. Like, but it doesn't further the conversation, and it seems like punching down. Like, oh, look at me, Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you didn't provide any context. You didn't say why I didn't know what I was talking about, or really provide anything at all other than just saying I didn't know what I was talking about. So it's a very helpful conversation there, but I'm
what I'm saying. Like,
over it. Yeah, clearly over it. I am. Yeah.
I know. Listen, that's the one thing I love about the media is you have the ability to ask follow-up questions for certain things, right? Like whether he's been following you for a while, not following you, how it came across his timeline, I don't know. But my thing is, okay, boom, he says that. And like, for both ways, and I guess I'm saying this for you, but also for him. You, like, when he says, you obviously you don't know matchups. I would say you could even ask, okay, what matchups am I not understanding? What am I not getting? Because at the end of the day, both of your jobs are for getting information and getting content out to Falcons fans. Right? We all want Falcons fans to get the best content that we can get, right?
Yeah.
So instead of, like you said, instead of rebutting, he could have brought that question up too, in terms of when you say, or you bring up the post of Falcons look like they just rolled over the Titans, or look past the Titans, they didn't get ready. He could have asked, okay, why do you think that? You bring your points as to why you feel that way. So that was a part missed by him. And like I said, for you, it was he's saying, obviously you don't understand mismatches. So that's when you ask, okay, well, what do you think I missed? Now I believe that didn't have, it shouldn't be on you to ask that, just because the whole situation was brought up because of him coming in and saying you don't understand it. But like I said, the best thing I love about this industry, or at least the opportunity and possibility that's there, is the opportunity of follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. The fact that it wasn't there, the fact that I believe as a whole we missed out on informing and educating Falcons fans even more, which again is why I'm here. You know that I want to help out, informing Falcons fans about line play and just football in general as much as I can. That's unfortunate that we just, like I said, that we just missed out on that opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It's sad because this is, a guy that I really do respect and would be happy to talk with off air, on air, whatever. That opportunity's never presented itself, but it just, it didn't seem like there was any desire for that. It seemed more like just venting frustration, which that's what Twitter's for too. I'm guilty of that myself. So not gonna hold it against him too much, but come back to us, man. Come back to us. We don't need to be nasty, it is Twitter, so I get that, but nobody needs to be nasty on here. There's a lot of respect that I have.
Absolutely.
So it's just a little jarring, but hey, things are getting testy, and I think this is another sign that things are getting testy with the team, Jordan. If the team media,
I get it, and it's not even just the media. Like, think about the fans.
Yeah.
How many arguments have we had about the quarterback? How many arguments do we have about the center? And how many arguments about where's the top 10 tight end that you drafted? Where's the top 10 receiver you drafted? Where is the top 10 running? Like, we're all frustrated. And I get it. It is fair. You should be. This team, talent-wise, is a whole hell of a lot better than 4-4. Yeah. I'm fresh. Here we go. It's rant time. I got to do it now.
Go for it.
I am very frustrated with this team right now. And I know, like, when we've done shows before, when we do the post-game reaction shows, and people talk about, oh, man, you act like the season's over. Well, we're first in the division. Yes, we are. I don't want to stop, though, at 4-3, which we were before this week, or 4-4, where we are now. I don't want to stop there. I want more. I believe this team can do more. So when I critique and when I talk about this team, and I think when others do too, that's how we're critiquing them. Not where we are now, but where we want to be. Like, again, last year we were what? 8-9, I believe. Mm-hmm. And we all know how that roster was. This roster is a whole heck of a lot better than that roster was. We haven't seen the playoffs since 2017. Like, I don't want to just be in terms of, like, to an extent, week to week of, well, we won this week. Doesn't matter how it looks. No, it does matter. Because if you turn the ball over 3 times in a week, that carries. If you can't run the ball against a certain team and a certain defense that they run, it matters. If you have coverage busts that show up week to week, it matters. That's going to play into what actually your team does later on in the year. So this is a Falcons team, like I said, I have loved. I'm always going to love, and I'm going to want something for. I was in Minnesota in 1998, in January. It was very cold for the NFC Championship. I've been to New Orleans twice. I've been to Tampa. I've been to Carolina. I've seen games at Levi's. I've been everywhere with this team. I want them to win. And yes, I'm happy when they win, but at the same time, I'm also going to critique them and say, man, it could be even better if it looks this way. Again, going back to last week, the Tampa game, you win it on a last-second field goal. Am I happy we won? Yes. I'm also frustrated. Now, we could have won that game 30-13. You best believe it. So again, just the overarching point. I understand the frustration. I think it's valid. I think we all are frustrated with where we are right now versus where we should be. And with that, I'm gonna get off the soapbox.
Yeah, no, I mean it's sort of inexcusable to me that this team is 4-4 again with an easier schedule and much better talent.
Yes.
Like, I can't believe it. Like, it's like, wow, we're right back where we were last year with a better team and an easier schedule. And like,
yes,
with the same, different problems, but same people involved for the most part. So, you got to get your shit together. That was kind of the takeaway from the postgame show. Get your shit together, start winning games, because it's time to start stacking wins, because you can't be messing around with this for much longer. And I wonder if the quarterback thing is a symptom of the pressure that they're feeling. Like, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Like, we are not where we need to be. Because the quarterback is the face. The quarterback's not the whole problem. I mean, we could talk about Arthur Smith. We could talk about the O-line underperforming. We could talk about a lot of stuff. And I'm sure we will, on Wednesday, and hopefully not too much over the future post-game shows, but you never know. I'm sure it'll come up at some point. But it's time to put this together. And now that, I think you can feel the sweat beads starting to form with this whole quarterback thing. I think that's really the first outward sign we've seen that they're feeling the pressure. Like, okay, we're way too good to be losing these games. We're going to have to do something about this. And we'll see what happens with that. Do they make a quarterback change permanent? Do they go out and get a big time pass rusher? They did just trade for Kentavious Street, the defensive tackle from the Eagles. It's a 6th round pick in exchange for a 7th round pick. So
I like that.
That's exactly what we were saying. Probably a small sort of move similar to last year's cornerback move where they trade, a late round pick to get some depth in here. Street was with Nielsen last year in New Orleans, so there's some familiarity there. Exactly. I know Aaron Freeman was all over this one, so good for him. But I don't think that trade changes anything with Sweat or Danielle Hunter, by the way, guys. Not at all.
Not at all.
So I think this was one move that they were like, okay, let's get this done. And then, I think that'll bolster the depth there for sure. Good depth move. But I think, we need to see how they're going to fix this, and whether that's hopefully a Sweat, Danielle Hunter move to solidify this defensive line, not just for this year. This is not just a win now rental move. This is like, we need to get this guy in here so we can build this out next year, because they have the money, but at this point it's like, who are you going to spend it on? Like, you're just going to re-sign your own guys? And like, that's not the worst idea, but like, you need that edge guy. You probably are going to need to spend this 1st round pick on a quarterback, so you're not getting your top edge that you need there. So in that case, trade that 2nd rounder, trade that 3rd rounder, whatever you need to do to get that guy in here, because otherwise you're probably not going to get that guy.
Like I said, give me the proven commodity over a question mark, and especially with what we've seen with 2nd round picks with the Falcons as of late. Yeah, if someone's already proven there's something, give me that instead. Yeah,
exactly. So, we'll see. Obviously, by the time you guys see this pod, they will have Danielle Hunter, Montez Sweat on Tuesday, but I suspect it'll probably be Tuesday afternoon or so that the trade gets done, because I think they're probably working the phones trying to see if they can get Hunter as well and seeing if they can use that as a bargaining chip or whatever the heck is going on there. I will say that Sweat's much cheaper in terms of cap space, so that does affect the compensation, whereas Hunter is really expensive. So either the Vikings will probably have to eat some of that, or the compensation is going to go down. So, we'll see. But I think they're working the phones. I think they're trying really hard, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. Fingers crossed. But guys, thank you for hanging out with us, breaking down this week. Not as much strict trench talk on this one, some more meta talk, but that was the topic of the week. We're talking about a quarterback switch and a massive loss on the defensive line, so that's kind of the way it had to go. But Today's show was brought to you by BetOnline. Appreciate BetOnline for sponsoring today's episode. He is Jordan Watkins at Big75 Fella. Jordan, anything else you'd like to let the people know about before we sign off?
Yeah. Like I said, the Falcon Fade podcast. We just had at the time of recording, we just had our episode, our recap show go on air in the Atlanta area, and we'll have our preview show for the Vikings go out on Saturday. And again, I just want to keep reemphasizing everyone who tunes in, everyone who watches the live streams, everyone who, even if you disagree and how vehemently you disagree, we love you and appreciate you. Like,
yes, truly,
we really do. There's none of this without you. So I just want to keep reemphasizing that. I know I always try to put my phone up, when I'm leaving the live stream so I can show, boom, I'm seeing the comments.
Yeah.
No, it does mean a lot that you're tuning in and you're checking it out. So I just want to say that again. Truly do appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to hearing y'all's comments for the show, whether you agree or disagree. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Please like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We really appreciate that. Helps the show grow. Leave a comment if you got something pressing you want to get off your chest. And leave that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice if you're listening to the audio. We'll be back on Wednesday for the next episode of Falcoholic Live as we get into this Vikings game that has become a must-win now. Yep. Now we will be facing Jaron Hall and not Kirk Cousins, but we saw how well facing a rookie quarterback in their first start went for the Falcons last week. So, hopefully it'll go better this week. That's all I can say. But
Jordan Addison's going to have a day, isn't he?
Probably.
I need to prepare myself for that?
Probably.
I need to just get ready for it.
I would mentally prepare for sure. But yeah, guys, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Until then, have a great day, folks. See ya.